In 45 years, China lifted 800 million people out of poverty. Built more skyscrapers than the rest of the world combined. Became the factory, the bank, and the engine of the entire global economy. It was the greatest miracle in human history. And then something broke. Today, million-dollar apartments sit empty. Young graduates are giving up on life entirely. Cities built for 1 million people echo with silence. But here's the thing nobody is asking. China didn't fail because it was weak. It failed because of exactly how it succeeded. So the real question is, how does the greatest economic miracle in human history become its own worst enemy? Welcome to Meridian Noir, and this is China, the dragon that ate itself. In 1978, China was poorer than Bangladesh. Let that sink in. The average Chinese citizen earned less than $1 a day. There were no highways, no skyscrapers, no global ambitions. Just 800 million people, trapped in a system that had beaten the life out of them. Then, one man changed everything. Deng Xiaoping didn't announce a revolution. He simply opened a door. A few coastal cities, a few foreign factories, a few farmers allowed to sell their own crops. That was enough. Within a decade, China became the factory of the world. Within 2, it was building more infrastructure every 3 years than Europe had built in a century. By 2024, its economy had grown from $150 billion to $18.7 trillion. The most compressed economic transformation in human history. But here's what nobody told you about how the machine actually worked. It didn't run on innovation. It didn't run on freedom. It ran on one thing: keep building, keep investing, never stop. And for 40 years, that was genius. The problem? Machines that can't stop eventually destroy themselves. In China, buying a home isn't just a financial decision. It's everything. Your security, your status, your family's future. For decades, property was the one thing the Chinese middle class trusted completely. And why wouldn't they? Prices doubled, then doubled again, then doubled again. So the entire economy reorganized itself around that trust. Property became 30% of China's GDP. Banks lent against it. Local governments survived on it. Families poured 70 to 80% of everything they owned into it. It wasn't just a housing market anymore. It was a religion. Then in 2020, Beijing blinked. Worried about runaway debt, they quietly squeezed the credit supply to developers. That was the pin. Evergrande, once the world's most valuable real estate company, collapsed under $300 billion in debt. Country Garden followed, then others. $18 trillion in household wealth evaporated. Not stolen, not lost in a crash you could point to, just gone. Imagine you're standing in the middle of a city. 6-lane highways stretching in every direction. Gleaming skyscrapers catching the afternoon sun. Shopping malls, parks, a metro system. Everything a modern city needs. Except people. No footsteps. No traffic. No noise. Just wind moving through streets built for 1 million residents, occupied by a few thousand. This isn't a post-apocalyptic movie set. This is Ordos, Inner Mongolia, built during a coal boom, designed for 1 million people, and for years, almost completely empty. But Ordos isn't alone. Chong'an, announced in 2017 as China's City of the Future, has absorbed $85 billion in investment. Reporters who visited recently described streets that looked post-apocalyptic. Tianducheng, a full-scale replica of Paris, complete with its own Eiffel Tower, sat silent for years in the Hangzhou countryside. Now, some analysts argue these are simply cities built ahead of demand, that Shanghai's Pudong was once empty too, that patience is all that's needed. And they're not entirely wrong. But here's what they're not telling you. Most of these apartments weren't bought to be lived in. They were bought the same way you'd buy gold, as a store of value, which means millions of units will never see a single family, a single child, a single life lived inside them. China didn't build ghost cities by accident. It built them because the machine demanded it. You've seen the empty cities, but the real time bomb isn't above ground. It's buried in the books of thousands of local governments. And it's $8.3 trillion they don't want you to know about. Here's a question nobody asked while the cities were being built. Who was paying for all of this? Because the roads, the metros, the gleaming public squares, none of it was free. And China's local governments had a problem. They were legally banned from borrowing money directly. So they did something clever. They created shadow companies. Thousands of them. State-owned entities that could borrow from banks and bond markets without technically being the government. They called them local government financing vehicles. And they borrowed, and borrowed, and borrowed. The IMF estimates the total hidden debt at $8.3 trillion, 48% of China's entire GDP. Debt that doesn't appear on any official balance sheet. When you add it all up, China's real debt-to-GDP ratio isn't the official 69%. It's 117%. But here's where it stops being a number and starts being a life. When land sales collapsed, the very land sales these governments depended on to repay their debts, something broke quietly across thousands of Chinese towns and cities. Teacher salaries delayed, hospital supplies cut, infrastructure maintenance abandoned, and the borrowed money still owed. Zombie companies kept alive by new loans, regional banks quietly suffocating under bad debt. The machine was still standing, but it was running on fumes. You studied for 18 years. You survived China's brutal university entrance exam, one of the most competitive tests on Earth. You graduated. You did everything right. And now you're sending out your 200th job application. Still nothing. This is the reality for millions of young Chinese today. In 2023, youth unemployment hit a record 21.3%. 1 in 5 young people, educated, ambitious, ready, with nowhere to go. The industries that should be absorbing these graduates, technology, education, property, have been gutted by government crackdowns or buried under the rubble of the real estate collapse. And the jobs that remain demand engineering and vocational skills, not the law and arts degrees that millions spent years earning. So what do you do when the system you trusted completely fails you completely? Some are fighting, most are not. A quiet revolution is spreading across Chinese youth culture. They call it tongue ping, lying flat, rejecting the grind, refusing the hustle, choosing stillness over a race that feels rigged. And then there's Balin, let it rot. Something darker, not peaceful resistance, but the total abandonment of hope. Young people delaying marriage, refusing to have children, some moving back home, not out of love, but because there is simply nowhere else to go. And here's why this matters beyond the heartbreak. China's population is already shrinking. Its workforce already declining. Every young person who opts out of building a future is one less person holding up an economy that desperately needs them. Everything I've told you so far, how much of it is actually true? Here's something that should make you deeply uncomfortable. In 2023, China's youth unemployment hit 21.3%, a record that embarrassed Beijing so severely they did something extraordinary. They stopped publishing the data entirely. For 5 months. Gone. When it reappeared, the methodology had been quietly changed. Students were excluded from the count. The number dropped overnight. But youth unemployment isn't the only thing that disappeared. Land sale revenues, consumer confidence indicators, certain banking exposure reports. One by one, datasets that told uncomfortable stories were suspended, modified, or buried. Chinese censors were even instructed to scrub social media posts deemed to be, and this is the actual phrase they used, doom-mongering about the economy. So when Beijing announces GDP growth of 5%, consider this. The Rhodium Group estimates actual growth at 2.4% to 2.8%, almost half the official figure. And here's the thought that should stay with you. Every number in this story, the debt, the unemployment, the empty apartments, is probably worse than what we've been told. You might be watching this from India, from Germany, from Brazil, from the United States. And you might be thinking, this is China's problem, not mine. It's yours. When the world's second largest economy sneezes, everybody catches something. But what China is experiencing right now isn't a sneeze. It's a slow internal collapse, and the shock waves are already reaching you. In Australia, iron ore prices have cratered as Chinese construction grinds to a halt. In Germany, Europe's industrial heartland, car exports to China are falling off a cliff, pushing an already fragile economy toward recession. Across the global south, factories are being undercut by a flood of cheap Chinese goods. Solar panels, electric vehicles, steel, exported at prices no one else can match, because China desperately needs to sell its way out of a crisis it can't admit exists. And then there's the bigger picture. Since 2018, the United States has been systematically dismantling its economic relationship with China. Tariffs that once averaged 3% now sit close to 50%. Supply chains that took decades to build are being rerouted through Vietnam, Mexico, India, almost overnight. The world is splitting into 2 economic blocks, and every country on Earth is being forced to pick a side. This isn't just China's lost decade. This is the moment the world economy we grew up with stops existing. So, back to the question we started with. How does the greatest economic miracle in human history become its own worst enemy? Here's your answer. It doesn't collapse dramatically. There's no single crash, no Lehman moment, no explosion you can point to and say, there, that's when it ended. Instead, it does something far more insidious. It stagnates. Because China's government controls the banks, it can do something no free market economy can. It can absorb losses in slow motion. Roll bad debt forward. Keep zombie companies breathing. Maintain the appearance of stability while the foundation quietly crumbles beneath it. Economists have a word for this. They call it Japanification. After Japan's own lost decades following its property bubble collapse in the 1990s, 30 years of stagnant growth, 30 years of deflation, 30 years of a society slowly, quietly, accepting less. But here's what makes China's version of this story different. Japan was already rich when it stagnated. China is not. And Japan was aging slowly. China's fertility rate has collapsed to 1.01 births per woman, nearly half the level needed to sustain a population. By the end of this century, projections suggest China's population could shrink from 1.4 billion to somewhere closer to 700 million. A society getting old before it got wealthy. A machine slowing down before it finished building what it started. And so we return to those empty cities, those silent streets, those young people lying flat, letting it rot, quietly opting out of a future that feels like it was never really theirs. They aren't the symptom of China's failure. They are its most honest portrait. Because China didn't fail by being weak. It didn't fail by being poor. It didn't fail by making one catastrophic mistake. It built too much, too fast, for too long, and called it a miracle. And the miracle believed its own story.
There's a story in every corner, and we're just getting started. If you love discovering the unexpected, hit that subscribe button to join the Meridian Noir community. Don't miss a single corner. Smash that like button if you found this helpful. We'll see you everywhere.